Hi, Cary.
Hello, Delphine. How are you?
Good. Welcome to my circle.
Well, I'm honored and privileged to be here.
Well, I am so privileged to have you. I always like to tell I know my guests. We actually go way back. Our kids grew up together in Laguna Beach, and your son, Michael Hyden, is a very good friend of my son, Julian's growing up. And I think Eris might have even played on a team of yours because you're quite active in sports in Laguna. And we'll touch on some of that coming up. And then years later, we got kind of reintroduced through our girlfriend, Jen Schulman. It's been a nice, long friendship.
It has been. And I treasure our friendship very much.
Yay. I had your girlfriend, Bree, here yesterday. She's going to be a guest on our roundtable talk. So that's going to be fun too. It's like the whole family.
Yeah, she said she had a great time.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, so for people who may need to have a little bit more of a formal introduction, you are a senior partner at the law firm Latham Watkins. You have, for almost 10 years, served as the chairman of the corporate department. I don't think you're doing that anymore, but that was something that you did for a very long time.
Passed the baton recently, but I got to chair for a good while.
You've led over 200 mergers and acquisitions transactions representing clients in a broad range of industries, including pharmaceuticals, medical device, consumer brands, action sports, technology, real estate, financial services. There's pretty much nothing you haven't done.
When you get as old as I am, the number of transactions add up. So.
Well, you say that, but I think every birthday you go back a year, if I recall. So you're just getting younger and younger.
Absolutely. About 15 years ago, I started thinking, I want to really look forward to my birthdays. And it just dawned on me, if I start counting backwards, then I'm more likely to be excited about it. So that's the strategy. I've taken it and run with it. And as you know, you've been there to celebrate on some of my birthdays.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the 37th this year.
So exciting.
You were named Dealmaker of the Year, not once, but twice, 2014 and 2015, by American Lawyer magazine. And you're consistently on the top 100 attorneys in the state of California by the Daily Journal. And you're only one of 5 attorneys to be in the nation to receive the 3-year MVP award by the BTI Consulting, which is based on client reviews, right? That's a lot of awards. And to be given them specifically by clients, I mean, what does that mean to you?
I've been the right place at the right time. I've, had the pleasure of working with an extraordinary team. And I'm the old guy, so I get a lot of the limelight, but it's a great team.
Yeah. Do you always work with the same team or for each case?
No, everything's a little different. Latham Watkins is 3,200 lawyers around the country and 31 offices. Our corporate M&A group is literally in the hundreds. I think we probably have 800, 900 lawyers that practice in the merger and acquisition sector. And I can draw upon all those resources. And I've had some transactions where I've needed to have almost 200 lawyers committed to a transaction, working around the clock. And so I have a terrific team, but I have a number of my colleagues who I've worked with for 10, 15 plus years on a routine, regular basis. And they make me look a lot better than I otherwise would, that's for sure. So.
Oh my gosh. So have you ever practiced any other type of law besides M&A?
I was had a more broad corporate practice where I would do IPOs as well as M&A and public company representation, some private equity work, those things. But I came out of law school not really knowing what I wanted to do, and I quickly kind of gravitated into the corporate area. I had done done well in some mock trials and things like that. So I thought maybe I would potentially be a litigator, but just my personality makeup is much more about celebrating successful deals and working toward that end rather than trying to crush the other side in a litigation matter, even though hostile takeover work certainly is more confrontational than the kind of the day-to-day M&A work that we tend to be working toward a common goal, whereas in the hostile takeover world, that's certainly not the case. So
yeah. Well, the case that you're probably the most famous for, and the one that got you the Dealmaker of the Year award, is, of course, the sale of Allergan to activists. And I believe that was in 2014.
Yes, so it was launched, the hostile that ultimately led to the sale transaction was launched April 21 of 2014. That date is forever indelibly inscribed. I had just finished running the Boston Marathon. It was a Monday, the day after Easter, and it's back in the BlackBerry days. And so, unlike essentially every other marathon, the Boston Marathon is run on a Monday, and it's Patriots Day in Massachusetts. It's literally a holiday in Massachusetts. Surround in their central part of their celebration is they all come out to cheer on those that are running the Boston Marathon. Again, unlike every other marathon that typically starts at 6:37 in the morning, the Boston Marathon does everything a little different. They start at 11 o'clock, and by the time that I finished, crossed the finish line, got my medal, got my water and some post-race things to give me a little bit of nourishment, I make my way to where you check all your bags and have my phone check there. And it's the old BlackBerry, and I turn it on, and it was by the time I make it back to the hotel, shortly after 4 o'clock when the markets close on the East Coast, and I see this. It says Valiant and Bill Ackman launch hostile takeover on Allergan. Look at that, and I'm just, I'm sure I turn white as a ghost because that's.
And they were a longtime client of yours at the time, right?
Allergan, I kind of became their boardroom lawyer, their corporate M&A lawyer in 2001, and had gotten very close with their entire management team, their CEO, David Pyatt, truly one of the great CEOs of all time. The general counsel who hired me, Doug Ingram, was such a good general counsel that the board saw that he could bring greater value to the company on the business side. So he ended up becoming the number two, the president of the company during that part, 2014. So it changed my life forever. We had the good news is we had prepared for this contingency. It's not something you ever expect, but good public company discipline is to prepare for these things. So we had just been in front of the board a couple months beforehand in February, refreshing the shareholders' rights plan, the pill, if you will, and we had a script of what happens in the event of some kind of hostile or activist. And we just immediately went to the playbook that we had all kind of embraced. And literally, less than 18 hours after the hostile was announced, we had a board meeting and we adopted the shareholders' rights plan, which stops off, prevents and a potential acquirer from accumulating more shares. They had already accumulated over $4 billion of Allergan stock, 9.8%. So they had a big stake already, but by cutting it off so quickly. It could have gotten much worse. And that started an 11-month saga where I pretty much every day would wake up to Kramer, and the Allergan was always the lead story. Literally, the first 7 months were the hostile, and then we made a lot of money for the stockholders. The hostile was initially at 48 billion. It ultimately they informally suggested they would get up to 53. Never made that formal offer, but ultimately we were able to hold off the hostile long enough where a white knight came in. We negotiated a $73 billion deal literally in 12 days. And it was remarkable as we're fighting off the hostile on one front and literally playing a chess match with eight chess boards. We're negotiating $73 billion deal. From November 5 is when we signed an NDA with activists, and we announced that deal on November 17. And we were able to conclude and close it. As soon as we announced the deal, Ackman and Valiant put up the white flag, surrendered, and we had helped.
Because they were going to make a lot of money too on that deal.
Well, they were going to make a lot of money because there's interesting dynamics when a hostile at a premium, but a meaningful premium, 30% or thereabouts from what it was trading beforehand. But the board really was extraordinary. We had 41 board meetings during the first 7 months of that transaction. They never got weak in the knees. They understood the value that the company had. They understood the business plan and the opportunity to grow value for the stockholders. And literally, despite all the claims of breaching their fiduciary duties and all this kind of stuff that's part of the hostile takeover script, the playbook, if you will. They resisted all those. They had confidence in their ability to say no. And activists came in at 73 billion, a huge increase for the shareholders. We actually increased the total value given to the shareholders by $27 billion by our ability to hold off the hostile long enough to negotiate a friendly deal that provided tremendous value. See, it's when I say, you get these awards sometimes because of just being in the right place at the right time. The board and the CEO of Allergan really deserve the credit. I helped facilitate that success, but their confidence in their ability to provide value to the stockholders allowed this $27 billion of additional value. And, I was.
And I'm sure their trust in you had played a big part as well.
Having a relationship that goes that far, and, I've done almost 80 deals for Allergan in those prior 15 years. So it's been a lot of trust and mutual respect. And
now, would they have sold if this hostile takeover event had not occurred? Were they thinking that they were going to sell?
Not really. I think that they believe so much in their future that a sale transaction was not really on their list. But at some point in time, when they're able to achieve that additional value, the stock was trading at less than 40 billion at the time the hostile was launched. So from 40 billion to 73, it was about an 85% premium from where it was trading before. And at that point in time, the board said, well, we wouldn't otherwise have been proactive. But if we have that kind of offer, then this is what's best in the interest of the stockholders. So,
yeah, and you've referred to the playbook a couple times. clearly, based on the type of press this case got, it was very different than anything, or should I say, deal. It's a little different if it's not a criminal thing. So, was there something unique that had been done here that hadn't been done before, or what really made this so notable? If you're kind of going by the playbook.
Yeah, so it was the first time in corporate American history that a hedge fund and a corporation had combined to launch a hostel. And the approach that they took was on one part brilliant, but there was an Achilles heel flaw that we were able to ultimately really use to our benefit and advantage. But it got everyone's attention not only because of the size of you don't have
Was
many.
that one of the? I've heard that it's actually at the time maybe the largest deal of its
It
type,
was
right?
absolutely one of the largest. It was the largest in a decade. Clearly, the most high profile hostel in probably 20 years. I had, as a very young lawyer, carrying bags and not making the strategy. I had the pleasure and privilege of representing Unical in the T. Boone Pickens hostel back in 85, 86, to date myself. You wouldn't know that, would you?
He was just carrying bags. He was just an
I
intern.
was a middle school kid. But by osmosis, a lot of the strategy sinks in, and being, again, that was a round the clock transaction. And we made law in that. The Unical decision that was litigated in the Delaware Chancery Court is still part of the seminal law that really impacts the hostile takeover world. So to be able to be on probably two of the most three prominent hostels in corporate America history is something that certainly from professional accomplishment and professional satisfaction are something really special to me.
So, have you ever actually represented a client that was the initiator of a hostile takeover?
Try to stay on the defense side.
You never liked to wear the black hat, Cary.
But there have been occasions where, I won't mention them, where I started off in a more aggressive, but they transformed into friendly deals, where situations where we thought perhaps that the board wasn't really pursuing the best interest of the stockholders, and we let them know that. A lot of hostels where there's quote unquote bear hug letters sent turn into friendly deals, and been involved in those. But I prefer being on the defense side.
Yeah. So, how much of merger deals actually are based on numbers, and how much of it is based on actually negotiation tactics? So, you're a very numbers oriented person as well.
Yeah. So almost always in a M&A context, certainly at the kind of the valuations that I tend to be involved with, there's investment bankers and lawyers. After doing this as many years as I have, I've kind of have as much of a businessman's hat on as I do a lawyer's hat. I think that has been one of the attributes that has kind of led to some success. So we're negotiating a deal that has a lot of both business and legal attributes, and so I'm always reminding our clients that purchase price has got to be an important driver. There are many other important terms and conditions that we have to really ensure that we help get our best deal for our shareholders as well.
So in transactional law, is there like a lead attorney that actually is the person who does the communication and then everybody else is your support person? Is that how it works with that?
Yeah, I mean, at my stage, you know, I'm leading,
Right.
but there tends to be teams, and based on the size and importance of a transaction, I'll have, as I mentioned earlier, deals where I'll have up to 200 lawyers, um, and I have some partners in crime that I tend to associate with on larger transactions. I should mention my partner Paul Tassetti, who I shared the American Lawyer Merger and Acquisition Dealmaker of the Year award with. Paul and I have worked together many times. He's as brilliant a man I've ever been around. So yeah, there can be certainly co-leaders in transactions that are of that size and substance, but most deals, just given my vintage, I'll take lead responsibility.
So, in addition to the pharmaceutical deals that you've worked on, you've also worked on a lot of consumer brands, some fun stuff. And I know people always love to hear the names that they like: Volcom, Oakley, Tilly's, Diesel, Too Faced Cosmetics, St. John's Knits, to name a few. One of your more famous deals is you executed the Yeezy deal with Kanye West. Tell us a little bit about how that went down.
Yeah, so I got into the kind of the branded companies, like so much of my practice. It's been more by accident than design. Good fortune, one could say. Again, as a very young lawyer, I got pulled into the Quicksilver IPO. And so we were actually representing the investment banks, not the company. But I got to know uh, Quicksilver, what their business was. I got to know Bob McKnight, who became the good friend over the years, and I coached with him in Little League Baseball, those kind of things. But I started working with Quicksilver, and then the next thing I knew, I had an opportunity with Billabong, and then the next thing I knew, it was Oakley, and I was doing all their deals, and then
these guys are all in our backyard. I mean, these are all Orange County-based companies.
So again, right place, right time. I happened to, Orange
all live in
County.
Laguna.
Yeah, exactly right. So the action sports world, the epicenter is clearly here. A worldwide epicenter is right here in Orange County. So the next thing I know, I'm being asked to take on Volcom and do their IPO, and then Massimo, and be very involved in. I negotiated their deal where they went retail direct with Target, and at a time when they had some highs and then some less than highs, but this was a great exit strategy, and Skull Candy and Vocal. I had ultimately sold a company called Fox. It was a motocross apparel company, and there was 5 members of the family, the Fox family, and one of whom was Pete Fox, who, after the sale of Fox, got hired by none other than Kanye West and Yeezy to kind of serve as their general manager, their business operations guy. And Pete called me up one day, and it's actually a really embarrassing story, so we may have to edit this out. But this is so. He called me up, and it's like 9 o'clock at night one night, and I'm up in my office just trying to wrap up things for the day. And he calls, Cary, I have an interesting opportunity for you. Would you be in a position where you could represent Kanye West? And I knew the name.
You're like, I don't do divorce law.
Yeah. Well, I knew the name, but this is how dense I am with things. I don't watch TV, so I didn't. I knew the name, but I didn't know how I knew the name. But it was clear that I was being asked in a way that made me feel like there's something unique about the way he's framing this
Yeah,
question.
right.
So I like trying to, think quickly on my feet. How do I respond to this? And I said, look, Pete, I need to run conflicts and reflect on this opportunity. Can I call you back tomorrow? I said, sure, great.
Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah. And so I went downstairs and I asked my son who's there, I said, Kanye West, does that name ring a bell with you? And he looked at me like I was the most dense human on the planet, right?
As kids do.
Yeah, exactly. And he says, of course, Kanye West, Kim Kardashian. I had the same reaction with Kim Kardashian. It was a name that I knew.
You're like, yeah, that's not helping.
Yeah. That's like, can you give me a little bit more? And so he pulls out his phone and he starts playing some music. And I said, why do you think a client would ask if I had any concerns or issues representing him? And he said, well, Kanye's not your ordinary celebrity. Maybe, Dad, do a little diligence on the internet.
Yeah.
And so I did, but there was part of me that was fascinated, quite frankly,
Absolutely.
about the opportunity. And in Yeezy, my kids were like, "Oh my gosh, Dad,
could you make tennis shoes part of the deal?"
Yeah, please. Can you get paid with tennis shoes? And so I called the next day, and I took on that representation, which was definitely fascinating. I mean, in ways that I still shake my head. But I've never had a deal die as many times as that deal. Kanye's not easy to be opposite of.
Yeah.
And his approach, they had the president of Adidas, had flown in a red eye from Germany to sit down with us in our Century City office to negotiate this, what ended up making Kanye a billionaire. I mean, at the time, he had not managed his wealth particularly well, and it was, certainly a matter of public record. But we negotiated a baseline of not less than 600 million, but it has been much more successful than that by a multiple of that, and it's created a great amount of wealth for Kanye. But the entire time, he would refer to this, and he's referred to it again in the public. So I'm not speaking out of school, but as indentured servitude. They want me to be. I said, now help me understand.
Anybody would die for this deal, but
help me understand. The worst you can do is 600 million. The best could be in the billions of dollars. Now, help me out on this. And Adidas had a problem with him wearing other brand t-shirts.
As anybody would.
As anyone would. And but he had a pair of shoes, and I won't mention the brand, but you interviewed the fellow recently, and that he loved. And he didn't want to give them up. And I asked him, I said, do you love them over $600 million? Because that's the decision you ultimately have to make.
That's a good way to break it down.
And if this is more important to you than having no less than 600 million paid in the next 5 years, then let's walk away from this deal. But if you think that you might want to do this, you might consider.
There's the Cary Hyden art of negotiation.
Getting over this. And so once we ultimately signed it, I went to his home, and he and Kim were up in LA, and one of their many homes. But I went there with my tax partner, and we're there, and there was like 20 people in the house running around. There's Kim's there. She comes in, dragging Kanye away from us, and multiple times there's some designers there that are trying to help do some, bring some furnishings into the house and things. And I asked him, I said, now that it's done, you signed this up for, a couple weeks ago, and you've had an opportunity to reflect. Are you happy with it? You mentioned indentured servitude. Are you? And he says, Cary, yeah, I still feel the same way. And I said, oh, why'd you do it? And he says, one reason only. And that is to shut up all of Kim's friends, because they've told her for years that I'm out of my mind, that I'm, half a lunatic. And to me, this has to shut them up, because would a great company like Adidas pay someone $600 million or more if they were a lunatic? I said, Kanye, that's an interesting way you're looking at
There
it.
you go.
And so anyway, I got to a point where we built up quite a good relationship. There are some great comments that will never leave my memory banks. The first day I'm meeting him in person for the first time when we're negotiating. He's always on the phone. His whole entourage comes in, and we're trying to connect with him, right? And so at one point in time, I said, because his reputation is someone that has a really hard time sitting down and not talking for an extended period of time, right? But I do M&A and he doesn't, right? So I told him, I said, look, I would never try to talk to you and tell you about design or about music. I don't know those areas, but I know M&A.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll defer to me, right, when we're in there, because I've negotiated hundreds of deals. Oh, of course, Cary. That's why I got you. You're the most expensive lawyer in California. I brought in the best for a reason, right? And he said, okay, good. We hadn't sat down for 2 minutes when he goes into this huge tirade about how the company that's sitting across from him was, he used very colorful language, was getting their backsides crushed by a company up in Oregon, and that he was the savior. He was the only thing that could save their company. And it took only about 5 more minutes of this before the president of Adidas walks out. Says, I've had enough. I didn't fly.
Yeah.
So, but in any event, the good news is we were able to make it through all of those things. And at the end of the day, we had made enough progress where he says, Cary, I like you. And I pride myself on my suits. And, the way he says, we got to get you some new clothes. I'm so talented designer, I can even make you look good. And I thought, I guess that's a compliment. I don't know. But
did you ever get a outfit from him?
I got a bunch of shoes, but no outfits.
Oh, darn. Would have been nice to see what he would have wanted to see you in. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, let's go back to the beginning. You're originally from Texas, University of Dallas for undergraduate, got your law degree at the University of Texas School of Law. And you came from pretty humble beginnings. Tell me a little bit about what that was like growing up in Texas.
Yeah, so I'll go back a little bit before Texas. I was born in Ada, Oklahoma, sprawling metroplex at the time of almost 1,000 people. My parents were high school students. So they kind of got the whole cart before the horse thing and end up eloping because they were teenagers. But just to make it more challenging for this high school couple, they doubled down and had a second, literally within 2 years, and a third shortly after that. Neither of my parents, went beyond high school education. They had their hands full just getting through high school with one and then a second child as well. But they were excellent at instilling in all of us the importance of education and work ethic. Now, late in life, after a 10-year layoff at 31, they had our fourth. And
Oh my goodness.
but
So was it your dad's work ethic and your mom's work ethic? Do you think that really helped to inspire you to become what you have?
To me, it was the most important thing. He worked two jobs essentially all his life, and but they also recognized that some of their circumstances they would have preferred going. My dad was a all-state basketball player, had college scholarship opportunities, but didn't pursue those, and felt most important to make sure the family was taken care of. But it had a huge impact on me in a lot of positive ways. Um, First of all, I went to 7 different schools by third grade. So like, it sounds Looney Tunes, right? But anytime my dad would get an offer that would pay him an extra $10 a week, we're moving. And went to 4 different second grades. But there were so many great lessons from this as far as being resilient, learning to kind of assimilate into different environments and to make new friends and all these things that under normal circumstances I may not have had the opportunity to really build myself in those ways. And I think it's had kind of lifetime positive.
We have that in common. I had the same experience. We moved a lot. And I remember thinking very distinctly as a young girl, okay, I'm at a new school again. I had like a map. You figure out who are the nicest people. You try to figure out who are the people you want to stay away from. Like there was a whole kind of a playbook that I would go through too, because you did have to learn how to make friends quickly and how to be likable and all of that. So I think it served me well. And we hear this a lot about protecting kids from certain things, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's some of the trials and tribulations that we go through in kids that actually help to make us stronger as adults.
I'm certainly of your school. Give kids opportunity to grow, and you grow through not the good times, it's through the challenges, and learning how to deal with challenges, I think is one of the most valuable things we can
teach our
have.
kids. It's so true. Cary, we do a little thing here called Big Questions. And this is where we get to learn a little bit about the inner workings of the man, Cary Hyden. Tell me a little bit about what your daily routines look like.
Well, I am such a creature of habit.
I know that about you.
I literally could be the poster child for creatures of habit. I don't even know where to start. I have so many. So the first thing that I do every morning is make the bed. I just feel a sense of accomplishment from the moment I get up and I make the bed. It looks good.
And you're an early riser.
And I'm an early riser. And I then go straight from making my bed to taking a shower. And I come out of that feeling like $1 million. It wakes me up. I don't need, so many people, coffee. Coffee's the first thing. That's not me. I enjoy my lattes, but I'm not that person. I kind of wake up happy and feeling good. But that shower is like, okay, I'm ready to go now.
Okay.
Let's conquer the world one conference call at a time, right? So I start my day there, and then I start literally almost every day at a little breakfast restaurant in Laguna called Heidelberg Cafe, and I have my
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I've been to Heidelberg many a times.
Scrambled eggs and avocado and my latte, and
Love Heidelberg.
I'm good. And then
No, I thought you run. You don't run first thing?
tend not to run first thing, but I am. I love my running. As you know, I've mentioned the Boston Marathon.
Yeah,
I've
you've been a marathoner for a long time.
Yeah, I started late in life, so I don't have the damage to my knees that a lot of people do at this stage of their life. But I've now run 35 half marathons, 12 marathons, Boston a couple of times, New York, Chicago. I've run, a number of marathons and half marathons, and I'm training for several right now. As a matter of fact,
Marathons are back.
Marathons are back, and unfortunately, I was supposed to run the Chicago Marathon last fall, and of course, it was canceled. I was supposed to run Kauai half marathon, Napa half marathon. I picked fun locations.
Yeah. It's not doing the Peoria Marathon, huh?
Big Sur race, all of which were canceled. But now I'm lined up to running Napa in the fall. I'm going to run Surf City, Huntington Beach.
What does running do for you? Why do you like to run?
Yeah, I started on. I had never run. I was big time athlete in high school and all that, but running was off limits. I thought running's not a sport; it's a character flaw, right? I mean, it's just not. That's not a sport. So I started, obviously, not not being able to run very far. If you haven't done it in 30 years, you're probably not going to
So is it a competition thing for you, or is it is it a competitive, or is it like a cathartic experience? Or
it became competitive, and because okay, I can do this. I'm such a goal person, right? I mean, I'm like driven, motivated, no mountain too high to climb, right? And so that it started off being, I can do this. Okay, these guys are laughing at me. I haven't run in 30 years. I got this. And and then all the other benefits, right? Just feeling so energized by it and giving yourself that opportunity to think, and consider your day and your goals and your purposes and all these things that runners talk about all the time and are so true. You're out at a 8 or 10 mile run, that's over an hour. Maybe an hour and a half, and you're gonna be able to let your mind wander in so many different directions. And some of the most brilliant things that I um, thought through during the Allergan hostel and some of my other deals have really come to me during my runs.
Yeah, when your mind gets clear
mind gets clear. You get to choose. You can be proactive in your thoughts rather than reactive in your thoughts. I spend 10 hours a day dealing with client crises and phone calls and board meetings and things like that. It's an opportunity for me to be more selective in what I want to think about rather than responding and reacting to client emergencies.
We've talked a lot about the fact that you have an incredible ability to manage stress. You have an incredibly stressful job, and you take on an inordinate amount of responsibilities that we'll try to review as well. How is it that is it a proactive approach to manage stress? Clearly, you were doing it before you started running, but how do you manage stress so well?
I don't feel stressed, and I don't know exactly why that is, but I have never felt it. High school quarterback, I never felt the stress. I never, pitching and I had bases loaded and nobody out. I just never felt. I think part of it is just again to kind of harken back to my parents. They were so positive, and they always said, nothing you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of embraced that and just always kind of
Yeah.
believed in myself. And so when you know that you're doing your absolute best and you believe in yourself, at least for me, no situation is stressful. So
Yeah.
I can't even tell you the last time I felt, I'm sure it had something to do with my kids
Yeah.
because that would, something external. But
because we're just like big walking wounds that
yeah,
with our kids, just waiting for somebody to come by and pour salt in them.
right,
But
exactly.
yeah,
But otherwise, I've never raised my voice practicing law. I've never pounded the table. I've been doing this for decades, but I'm just, steady Eddie, very unflappable. I've had a lot of people on the other side of deals try that, and it has no effect on me.
Yeah.
You can knock yourself out, but I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to, I've told people many times. I said, I let them get it out of their system once, and then they come back a second time with it. And I said, when you're ready to have a professional, constructive conversation, call me back.
There you go. Love it. Perfect. Tell me something that people would be surprised to know about you.
Oh, gosh, I'm full of surprises. For someone that is a creature of habit, I am full of surprises. Oh gosh, there's so many. So I'll give you a couple that.
Now we only have time for one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Sorry. This is my long-winded nature, right? So when I was interviewing for law firms, and by the way, I ran our recruiting at Latham for years. Do not do this. Do as I say. Do not do as I do, because it just comes off so cocky, and that's me. I'm like the last person. But there was some point in time where I must have just believed in myself a little bit too much. I had this section in my resume called miscellaneous self-serving statements. At least I was honest, right? Like, how did I come up with that?
You thought it was funny.
I thought it was funny.
It set you apart.
I thought it was a conversation piece, maybe. But there were some things in there that that I think people would find surprising. Maybe just because of my demeanor and those kind of things. But I was a multi-time Texas State wrestling champion and the first wrestler from Texas ever to win the National Junior Olympics.
Wow.
But on the same section in the resume, I also include the fact that I was a two-time Texas State bowling champion and went out on the professional bowlers tour. So that combination does not strike people as one that would fit within the same human being, right? I mean, you have one image of a wrestling champion, another probably different image of a bowling champion, and that. It definitely achieved the objective of being a conversation piece during my role. I think some people probably thought, "Oh my God, this guy is just so full of himself," which is not me.
No, but I'm gonna say that people didn't think that about you.
Yeah. But anyway, it certainly was something that surprises people.
Well, I now know who to pick when I want to have a bowling partner for sure.
I'm there with you. I got you. I got you covered on bowling. Or wrestling, either way.
There you go. There you go. Tell me something that you used to believe, but you don't anymore.
Another great question. I think the thing that comes most immediately to mind is I didn't appreciate how each of us can really make a difference. Um, I, I probably thought for a big part of my life that we are such small pieces in the overall universe that we can't really make a difference. But I know now we can.
That's a
We
great one.
we can and should make a difference.
Yeah. And you really reflect that in the charity work that you do, because you are so giving of your time on so many boards. And this is the crazy thing. People like to use excuses for why they don't accomplish more in their life, why they're not exercising more, why they're not philanthropic more, why. And I always think about you, because you seem to manage to have done it all. You're an incredibly busy businessman, but you also, and I'll just tell you, you serve on a list of organizations: Forum for Corporate Directors, Children's Hospital of Orange County, New Majority, Big Brothers Big Sisters, and many of those, and those are just a few of them. You've actually been the chair of them at the same time, and multiple boards at the same time. And aren't you on the board of the World Soccer Federation as well?
Not on the board, but I represent the U.S. Soccer Federation, and has some great perks. As you know, I've gone as their guest to the World Cup in both 18 and 14. 14 in Brazil. Saw Argentina and Germany play in the championship match. And then in 18, went to Russia for 2 weeks and actually saw the semifinal match in St. Petersburg, a semifinal match in Moscow, and then the championship match.
I remember your pictures from that trip. They were spectacular. I was so jealous.
I had never been to Russia before. It was one of the more fascinating trips. And to be able to get there and really see it, and I spent a little less than a week in St. Petersburg and a little less than a week in Moscow. And both cities are extraordinary in many ways.
So why is it so important for you to take the time out to give back and to be on these boards? And
there's a lot that goes into making us who we are. I had great role models in my life. My mom in particular, never had any money, but whatever she had, she gave away. And that was just something that she did, and really, led by her own example. And all of us have kind of seen just how giving. To this day, she still goes to the homeless center every week, and she's very, very religious, and so she gives a service there at the homeless center outside of Fort Worth, and she just is led by example of all the things. So when I was in law school at the University of Texas, I had done very well in law school, but I was feeling a little incomplete in the sense that I basically bust my backside for my own benefit, right? So I'm just trying. I went to law school. I had never met a lawyer, right? This was like I was so a fish out of water, right? I was so unsophisticated and green, and literally never met a lawyer. Didn't know what to expect. So I did nothing that first year but work, and I was at the very top of my class. So I gained a little bit of confidence, and then said, "Okay, but great, good for me, did well. Okay, I give myself a D for life. So, how can I be helpful to others?" And someone suggested getting involved in Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and I had never heard of it, but they were aware of it. I looked into it, and before I knew it, I had been matched with a little 11-year-old Hispanic Miguel, who was the oldest of four, as I was. He was 11 years old, lived in a very tough part of Austin. At the time, it was drug and gang infested. That world was starting to impact him. His mother worked 2 jobs. There were 4 different fathers amongst the 4 kids. None of them were involved. But she was a loving mother and had reached out to the organization and knew that her son was kind of wavering off course and asked if there was a mentor that could perhaps help. And so that led to a very long relationship where I went from someone that was failing out of school, not going to school very much, getting affected by gangs and other negative aspects, and build a relationship with him that was really difficult to do in the early stages. He's wondering, who's this waspy guy trying to be my dad, right? So it was took a long time, but he loved sports. I grew up in sports, so we tried to connect through that. But basically, for the first 4 months, he never asked me a single question, and it was just answer in small bites. But at one point in time, after about 4 months, he said, "What's law school?" Wow. So I went into action. So
you got him. You know, I got him.
So I go talk to all my law school professors and asked if I could bring him and told the circumstances, and they all were hugely supportive of it. To my detriment, they just grilled me while he's there. They're like,
no,
this is
they're going to take advantage of the situation.
The Christians being fed to the lions, and that was me. But I knew it was coming, so I definitely prepared for it. It'd been a lot to him. He was so excited about it. And I got him back on track in school. No one from his family had ever graduated from high school.
Wow.
He's a lawyer today.
Wow.
He got his act together and started doing really well in school. I had to fly into Austin because I was out here by the time I got out of law school and moved out here. We stayed in contact, but his mom wanted him to quit school when he was 16 and go to work. And I said, "Look, I need to talk to you about this because he's got a really bright future." So I flew into Austin, and ultimately we arrived at something that I was going to advance her the dollars that he would otherwise be making.
Oh my gosh, Cary. That's an incredible story. And you know what? I can see, because I have heard this story before, that it's exactly like you said. Every person can make a difference, right? Everybody can put that forward, and you made such a big difference.
Seeing the success that he has made out of his life really inspired me more so to realize that we can make a difference, that we can, folks that don't have every opportunity in the world, if they're given some mentorship and if they're given an opportunity, great things can come from it. You can really unlock people's potential by providing some mentorship and guidance. And so it's led me to have a lifetime of mentorship and trying to give back in that direction. I'm on the board of Big Brothers Big Sisters after such a fulfilling life experience. It has been something that's very special to me to be able to participate in that at this stage of my life as well.
And you're chairing the Big Chalk Gala this year as well. Is this your 4th or 5th year chairing the gala?
I've been on the board for 6 years, and last couple of years as chair. It is a extraordinary organization.
It is.
Delphine, as you know, 3 of my 4 kids were preemies. My daughter was a pound 12, born at 26 weeks, at a risk profile that it's hard to even think of. And she's now 21 years old, number 3 in her class in high school, a 2-time homecoming princess, and just doing lights out in college. Just got back from Boston yesterday, and so she's here for the summer. So super excited about that.
Wonderful! Awesome.
The chocolate is special. We have a term limit. I'll be term limiting off the board, but they have asked me to take on a project that is a little intimidating, but we have plans to transform what is already a great hospital, one of the top 20 hospitals in the country for children's healthcare, to really be the number 1 leading child care destination. Think Mayo Clinic for children's health.
Wow.
And that's our goal. Takes, unfortunately, a lot to get there, but
I need to introduce you to my friend and past guest, Ann Dunsmore. She's the one that raised the $1.24 billion for the UCLA Medical
I
Center.
would love an introduction. I'm taking on the chairmanship of the campaign to raise $500 million. So,
there you go.
Yeah,
That's peanuts for Ann.
I will. I'll take all the advice I can get. It's a little intimidating to take that on, but I'm going to bring every bit of my positive energy and.
Thank goodness you don't get stressed.
We got this.
Well, speaking of your kids, you do have 4 beautiful kids, 3 boys and a girl. And what has parenting been like to you? What has that meant to you?
Yeah, well, it's the ultimate happiness and joy, right? Not it's always easy, but I just to be able to help shape the lives of 4 beautiful souls. I've loved every minute of the ride. As you know, I coached 52 youth sports teams over a 15-year time period, all in my spare time.
Well, not only did you coach the teams, but you also have another claim to fame. Cary Hyden is the PA announcer of the Laguna Beach High School football games and has done it consistently for how many years?
Just 16 years.
Oh, that's all. During the Allergan hostile takeover to the sale of Allergan, you were still consistently every Friday night on that field announcing the Laguna Beach High School football, way past the time your kids were even at the school.
Yeah. So I started when all 3 boys played football for some period of time. And, Michael was the captain of the football team. And so it was a great experience for me. I had coached all the kids. And now, as the kids got into high school, the high school came to me and said, all the kids, you coach them, we'd love for you to become our announcer. And that may have been one of the first times I ever had stress. Really, I'm thinking, I could suck.
You were so good at it. I mean, I thought it was a professional announcer. I didn't know it was, I thought they had hired a professional announcer. I'm like, only in Laguna.
And I have so much fun with it and trying to make sure that everyone, what else would I do on my Friday nights, right?
Oh, I'm sure you're going to come up with a couple things.
But I've had a lot of fun with it. 16 years now. So it'll be
Wonderful.
17 years this fall.
Wow. Okay, so tell us, what can we expect from Cary Hyden moving forward? Do you have any big plans ahead?
I've told my kids that don't expect any inheritance. I am going to give away or spend everything I've got. So,
you're well on your way.
Yeah, I try. Yeah. I try. I'm a kid at heart still, as you know, and I just I believe in making every day a great day and just trying to make people feel good about their lives and to help those that haven't been as fortunate as me. So I got a lot. The chart campaign, sharing that will be a big part of my the next 6 years as we unroll the campaign. But the large part, just trying to wake up every day and make it as good a day as I can.
Wow.
Simple expectations.
Well, you seem to be doing a great job at it, Cary. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so fun to
pleasure,
share your
privilege.
stories.
It was a lot of fun for me. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
All
My
right.
buddy, I like you.
We should hang out more often.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to this episode of Delphine Circle. If you enjoyed the episode, please check out our last two. And remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm Delphine. Welcome to my circle.